I like critical mass because it's a celebration of bicycling. It's a way to get out and ride with other people and not have to worry about the cars that are trying to inch up on us. Not having to worry about the cars that are trying to pass us. Not having to worry about cars, really, and getting to enjoy the road with a whole bunch of other cyclists.
I use bikes as my really only source of transportation, so I bike to get around. I ride critical mass because I enjoy riding it.
I mean, it's just fun, and it's a fun way for bikers to come together and to meet each other and share their love of riding bikes, and you just have to try it, and then I'm sure they'd see they would enjoy it.
There doesn't seem to be any leader. It's kind of an anarchist, sort of a political action in the sense they're trying to get their point across about bike riders having a right to be in the road, but also just a lot of people coming together, showing support for bike riders.
Why am I here today? Because I don't own a car. Bicycling is my main form of transportation.
It's got physical exercise and getting out and riding a good bike on a nice day with some friends, huh? Good ride?
Doing this as a group highlights how many bicyclists are out there on the road, and it'll help hopefully get the roads safer.
I'm ready! Who's ready?
But I gotta tell you, I was just on the number 36, and there are a lot of people who weren't so wild about critical mass. I don't know, it doesn't cost me that much time to sit on the bus for a couple of minutes.
I do believe that critical mass is part of a visible bicycle culture that does help to promote further cycling within the city.
Yeah, this is Ozzy, and he's about ready to go on the coolest bike ride today. Ready for a bike ride? Ready. That's my horn. This is my horn right here.
Well, there's been a long history of critical mass ridings not only here but throughout the country. So we're here to basically ensure the safety of the public, and that includes the critical mass riders, the vehicle traffic at large, pedestrians, and the police officers.
This critical mass can be an example of the world as it could be. We move hundreds of people down the street in minutes. We have a capacity that's dozens and dozens and dozens of times greater than that of transit or certainly of single occupancy vehicles. And I think that's inspiring to a lot of people. Also, I think it's a strong example of people enjoying the streets, of using the streets the way that they feel they have a right to use them. And I think that can be very empowering for everybody.
This is CNN.
The clash between the driver of this white Subaru and a group of cyclists taking part in a critical mass demonstration played out in a quiet, upscale neighborhood on Capitol Hill.
There's some screaming and yelling, some crunching as he pulled out into the street.
What sparked the confrontation is unclear, but witnesses say they saw about a dozen cyclists surround the car, blocking the driver in. After revving his engine, the driver backed up, hitting at least two cyclists, and took off. That's when the cyclist retaliated.
They flattened all four tires on his car, damaged both windows, and dented the car. And he ended up having an injury to the back of his head.
There was a giant hole in the back windshield, and then he was getting out, and he had some blood around his neck.
Critical Mass is a group of cyclists who take to the streets the last Friday of every month to promote cyclists' right to the road. Along with the injured driver, witnesses tell us cyclists were also injured in the melee, but some thought the demonstrators took their message way too far.
The rest of us who are standing here, in our cars or sitting, and we can't go anywhere because we're all horrified, scared that if we go around, then maybe they're going to jump on our car too.
There was an incident last month where a car hit several bicyclists on the critical mass ride. He apparently got impatient, didn't want to wait for them to pass. So we covered it at some depth. There was a lot of coverage on talk radio. Some of it really antagonistic towards the bike riders, who felt like they don't follow the rules of the road, they're rude, they're really disruptive.
Last month there was a riot scheduled, and there was what I would consider a significant amount of violence. Anytime the police have to get called.
Last month, a car driver got very impatient and very aggressive, and the mask wasn't operating well. It wasn't tight. It had strung out and wasn't masked up. And the car driver tried to push through the mask, doing some very unsafe maneuvers, ended up running over two cyclists, attempting to flee the scene, and got stopped a block later, where cyclists then did attack the car. But when it made the news, it just made the news as cyclists attack car, not car ran over cyclists.
A lot of the media really focused on bikers attack driver and didn't give the background stories.
Wait a minute, this is really a one-sided account. The police officer arrived after the incident and just thought it was a bunch of bike riders out of hand. But the fact is, bike riders assaulted this guy. He had a gash in the back of his head, had to go to the hospital and get stitches. His car front windshield was smashed, the back windshield was smashed, the tires were slashed. I don't think you can say the bike riders were innocent.
The coverage seems to be largely car-centric, which makes sense because most people in this country and this city do drive cars more of the time than they ride bikes, so they aren't aware of the bicycle perspective as much. It's sad to see, but it makes sense.
Well, it looked to me like the only perspective that was presented was that of the driver.
Well, I think our very first story just reflected what the police account said, which was that a driver had been assaulted and his car had been attacked by bike riders.
Those initial police reports that were released weren't inclusive of everything that happened. And I wasn't present either, but I took it upon myself to speak to over a dozen first-hand witnesses and participants, and I've been working on a legal defense project and on a media correction project. And I've heard from a lot of people, and yeah, I agree that the stories that first emerged weren't too similar to what most of the people who were there seem to have experienced.
And it wasn't until I think about 4 or 5 days later that we had a much more detailed account. First-hand reports from some of the people who were involved in it, and it really raised questions about, whether the car was the aggressor, and a lot of the bike riders felt like, a car's, driving into a bunch of bike riders is really using it as a weapon. So I felt like we had a really, I thought it was a very balanced account.
I don't know, I guess I don't have much expectation of the mainstream media, so I wasn't that shocked. But the story about bikers attacking drivers is a lot more what people want to read and sensational than, than telling nothing or just that a driver hit a biker, which happens all the time.
I think that's consistent with police and media bias against social protest, public demonstration, and cyclists. And it's something that we need to work on in every way we can.
Well, a month ago we had some significant events, and so that's why we've increased our presence. And a lot of it is contingent upon what critical mass, how they're going to operate tonight. We're looking for good faith, want to make sure that we aren't unnecessarily disrupting the movements of the city. Everybody has a right to get to places.
I guess as a biker, I feel like I'm pretty threatened every day when I'm out on the road with other cars, and so this is the one time where I feel really safe, and I love being in a mass of bikes. It's a great feeling, and when you hear nothing but bike chains and you don't hear cars and car horns, it's pretty exhilarating. I like completely taking over the road, and I enjoy making cars sit and wait for the cyclists.
I don't think it's a particularly effective political action, but I don't think it's an ineffective one either. I think it's more of a fun thing that we do, and I think for new bikers, it's a time when they can feel comfortable on the road. Well, they often do not feel comfortable normally if they're not surrounded by a critical mass of bicyclists.
What I'd like fellow Seattleites to realize about critical mass is that we're not a crazed mob intent on destroying the city. We're using the streets in a way that is in fact perfectly valid for transportation and simultaneously for expression. And I believe that we all have a right to do that. Critical mass isn't about hurting anyone else's commute during the day. It's not about injuring the other people that we encounter on the road. It's about inspiring and modeling another way to use the road, a way that's people-centered, a way that puts that centers the idea of streets for people rather than streets for cars. I hope that people don't see that as an attack on their lifestyles or on them.
It depends on who your audience is. Like if your audience is the average person who doesn't really understand biking too much and doesn't understand, whether to be frightened of bikes or not, like this guy trying to walk in the middle of them, it scares a lot of people. And I don't know quite how to use critical mass to get beyond the folks that it scares and to use it to just say, yeah, you know what? Bicycles are here, they're going to keep growing, there's going to be more of them, and we got to figure out how to use the roadway smarter. It's not just cars.
The more people that get out there on bicyclists, the more chance that drivers and cars are actually going to start seeing us. That's really important.
When we're out here as a group, I see a lot of people that look like they wish they were joining us, and like wish that they were on bikes. And I think a lot of the hostility or anger that comes from cars is their frustration that they are stuck inside their cars while we're out enjoying ourselves.
We're people too. Just like inside of every car there's a person trying to get out, every cyclist that you see is somebody's son, daughter, mother, father, co-worker. And the people who come to critical mass aren't part of any specific organization. They're participating in a tradition that is celebrating, not attacking.
It's important to get on our bikes because it's actually a really fun way to travel. I get to where I'm going on my bike and I feel really good because I'm pumped up and I'm excited.
Our issues are sort of being bandied around, right? I was part of the protests. I helped organize the protests for the WTO, shutting down the WTO in Seattle in 1999, the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank in 2000, protest after protest after protest that succeeded remarkably well in stifling almost completely the progression of the World Trade Organization, stifling almost completely the power of the International Monetary Fund and World Bank, participating in the movements that helped radically alter governments across Central and South America, incredibly successful movements. Our issues on free trade and anti-corporate globalization are front and center in this election, are they not? We, in the peace movement, the war is front and center in this election, is it not? Issues of global warming, climate change, hurricanes Katrina and Rita, poverty, economic dislocation, race, gender, the recession, all front and center in this election. We have provided the base. We have provided the base on which the Obama movement is riding. It is the organizing, the articulation of the problem, the articulation of the solutions. The majority of Americans oppose the war. The majority of Americans are aware of the issues on which we speak. So what that leaves for us is, one, I think, being very excited about the number of people that are getting out, getting involved, feeling passionate. That is only good. That is only positive. The number of people who feel that oil companies are a massive problem that has to be addressed, that the war in Iraq is a war about oil that must be exposed, that a potential threat of a war against Iran is a threat that is real and present and that we have to work against and that we are afraid of, and that we have to stop, and that the vision of the United States in the world and the way that the world sees us is a problem that we have to address. And what that leaves for us is that we have to help the country see beyond elections. That if any one of us was elected president, I would not feel that much better, even if it was me, and particularly if it was me, than I do right now. That is not to say that the president is not critically important and makes very important decisions. What that means is that it is just one office, and that policy change and political change is very difficult and requires not an office holder, but movements and social movements. And that the energy that has been created about this campaign is about the suffering that Americans feel and see and are a part of, and the hope that they still have that things can be made better. Unfortunately, because of the way our politics is organized, people look towards savior politics, that one man, and maybe a woman, will ride forth and carry us to the better future. And we can put our faith in that one person. And they will do the work, too. We can go home the next day and go back to our regular life, and all will be better. And if history has taught us anything, that's not true. We need charismatic leaders and thinkers and organizers and motivators, and that's important, and we want to embrace them. But what we have to do as organizers ourselves is to look at all those people who have been inspired and say, what comes next? And talk to them and say, what comes next? The day after the election. Hillary Clinton talks about her, on the first day in office, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. I don't like any of the things she proposes, but that's all right. First day in office, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. So we have to turn to ourselves and say, the first day that whoever's in office, what are we going to do? What are we set up to do next? What have we used this election cycle, the raising of our issues, so that we are ready that next day?
What you eat, what you are. What you offer to others, what you are. What you enjoy yourself is a divine quality.
For many of our Indymedia viewers, a vegetarian cuisine is the socially responsible way to dine. So today, Indymedia is guests of Mehfil Fine Indian Dining in Redmond, Washington. Grand Chef Bakshi is guest chef from India.
I had the chance of entertaining many heads of states. Margaret Thatcher, Nelson Mandela, Indira Gandhi, Pope, Mother Teresa.
Indymedia viewer Claire from Seattle is neither royalty nor vegetarian, but at 83 years old, she is ready to learn some vegetarian cooking.
Nobody is totally a non-vegetarian. Everyone is a vegetarian. And great people, Aristotle, Plato, these are all vegetarians. And another wonderful example for this is horse, a beautiful, lovely animal that is attributed so well with its speeding capacity, running capacity, is a horsepower, is a vegetarian. So, vegetarian food gives whatever is required.
The Grand Chef explains that vegetarian food plus spices gives us whatever is required for sustenance. Here, he instructs us in the medicinal and culinary qualities of turmeric. Turmeric is highly utilized in traditional Indian medicine. He adds sesame seeds and explains
potassium, magnesium, manganese, copper, iron, calcium. What more mineral you want to eat? There is no uric acid, there is no fat element, there is no cholesterol imbibed, there is no disease borrowed in vegetables. Being a vegetarian, one must feel very kind in one way or the other to the other living world. Poor animal, poor chicken, poor hen, poor bird, poor fowl, poor turkey is living its own life just in the procreation of the world, in the God's creation, not to give its flesh and blood to us. Even those animals, they are vegetarians. We are not eating the flesh of a tiger and a lion. We are eating the flesh of a cow or a bull or a lamb. They are vegetarians. So indirectly, everybody is a vegetarian. Everybody is a vegetarian, to be honest. This is my philosophy. And religiously, you feel so very happy that you are not killing, but you are just enjoying your life with whatever God has given. Today, the world is going in a different direction as far as culinary aspects are concerned. At one time, when I started it half a century ago, people were really obsessed with a feeling whether vegetarian food will give them enough amount of energy levels. Then I have proved to them by showing myself at the age of 77, looking really, I think, healthy and happy going, because of what I eat, what I preach is vegetarian food. That's number one.
We want peace all around the world. We're asking for peace.
Hi, I'm Randy Rowland with PepperSpray Productions. And so what we're going to do right now is talk about how to make, out of really simple and cheap materials, the electric peace sign. Because if there was an electric peace sign in every window of every building, why, people would know that we were out there. A couple years ago, I thought of this actually at Christmas time. I bought on an after Christmas sale some of these rope lights. You can get these things, after Christmas, you can get them for just about nothing. A couple bucks is all I paid. And so I made my first electric peace sign. And here it is. I took an old cardboard box, and I took some strings, and I made the peace sign. The problem is it was on an ugly cardboard box. That was, peace sign, electric peace sign 1.0. Now we're going to go to electric peace sign 2.0. This is the hoop out of a lampshade that was going to get thrown away. You can find lampshades in the Goodwill or the Salvation Army or wherever you want for 59 cents or 29 cents, or they'll give them to you for free if you're lucky. And this is the little metal ring that's off at the bottom of the lampshade. You can probably do tricks with it. Do other things, but the trick we're going to do with it is use it as the stability for our electric peace sign. This was so handy, so lightweight, so discreet, and it'll essentially disappear, I think, once we get the peace sign on it. So now you may be thinking, well, how big of a peace sign can I make? And that's why I have my scientist here, Patrick, who is going to tell us all about circles. Well, if you aren't strong on the math, so this time we're going to use high technology here. We have the cable ties. Now the police use these to handcuff people. You're familiar with them. Probably if you're watching this training video, then you're familiar with these, because chances are you've had your hands behind your back with these around your wrists. We're going to put these to a little bit more positive use. The equipment here is not expensive, but if every window in America had an electric peace sign every night, hey, it's create public opinion, seize power. That's the concept. And we're going to create public opinion. Now here's my suggestion. If you start, so here's the electric plug that's going to plug this thing into the wall and all that. So if you start knowing that that's going to be on the bottom. So let's just take Here, Patrick, help me out here a little bit. Let's get some of these small cable ties or something. Now, you know the way a cable tie works. You go through the little thing and you zip it down. That's all there is to that. Now that's on there. And now we can just follow this along. And let's put another one around here. And then we'll just go along again. Create public opinion, seize power. Easy to do this at home. We're doing it after a great Thanksgiving dinner and we're sleepy and we're still able to do this. Now, it doesn't have to be perfectly straight. It can be an artistic peace sign. Let's just cable tie on the bottom here. As always, things go better with teamwork. Now, we'll just take and snip these. And this is just the finish work. Now you saw, no math, no fancy calculations, no nothing. The vision here has got to be peace signs in windows everywhere so that the night sky in every city in America is filled with peace signs. Now you can get different colors. I happen to like the red one, but you know, there's nothing says you couldn't do this with. Now let's take a look at it and see what do we have to do to make it maybe just a little bit better. Does that look like a peace sign? Yes, it does. Is this? We can adjust this a little bit, but I don't see. Yeah. I think anybody would see that as a peace sign. What do you think? Now, what I'm thinking is that you can hang this in your window with a piece of twine, you know, with a piece of fish line if you really want to be fancy. But any old string will do, because it won't be seen, and these things don't get hot, so it's actually quite safe. Doesn't matter. You know, it's safe. It's all inside the plastic. You can put it outside, because these are designed for outside use, or you can just hang it in the window on the inside. So, what do you say, Patrick? Let's go hang it in the window.
And we say